Welcome to the Rimworld mod rundown. We'll be taking a quick look at what you can expect to see from vanilla Psycast expanded Puppeteer. For starters, you'll need to own the royalty DLC, as well as the additional workshop content, Psycasts expanded, vanilla expanded framework, and harmony. Potentially the most complicated of all paths, vanilla Psycast expanded Puppeteer adds a single casting tree of the same name to use in your game. Usually it requires a pawn with a royal backstory to get the ball rolling, unless of course you get lucky with the Psycast Neurotrainer that will unlock a Puppeteer ability, and subsequently the entire tree for any Psycasting capable pawn to make use of. So why is Puppeteer complicated? It's mainly down to two reasons. Firstly, the tree will make use of its own resource, puppets, which work similarly to a Mechanator's bandwidth in its function. That in and of itself isn't too tricky. The harder part of using a Puppeteer is that their casts are just generally a lot more niche in their use and require a larger degree of planning, time management, and value consideration to make effective use of. You're going to need to be quite deep into this tree to make use of the synergies and see it flourish. Until you've got a good 5 or 6 abilities unlocked, it will be very lackluster. It isn't all downsides though. Puppeteers have a unique buff that sees their puppets sharing any experience that they earn with their master, allowing the caster to diversify their skill set by learning passively through their controlled minions. One very important part to take into consideration with your potential Puppeteer caster, more than any other Psycasting path, is their traits and passions. The stronger the traits and the wider the passions, the better. Ideally, you don't want them to be incapable of any work type either. You'll see why a little later. Enough talking about why they're potentially harder to use though, let's actually show their casts. Brain Cut. Brutally effective, if somewhat ruinous to any recruitment potentials. Brain Cut inflicts a small amount of damage directly inside the target's skull, with the damage value scaling quite dramatically alongside the caster's and target's psychic sensitivity value. This does make it somewhat easier to farm for the Trauma Savant condition, providing that you're using another cast to fix all of the horrific scars you'll be throwing directly on the target's brain. Remember that raiders that manage to run away also have a chance to return in a future raid, so if you wanted to, you can stack the odds in your favour by hitting any runners with a cast or two of this. They may turn up again later with strong opinions on which faction has the best tasting windows. Brain Leech. A quite powerful consciousness buff that draws from the victim, the target, to boost the caster, with it rising to peak impact after 48 hours, before gradually fading away again. You'll want to be careful with the target of this ability, given that at its highest effect, it reduces the victim's consciousness by a massive 50%, for a boost of 25% to the caster. If you've already slapped the target with Brain Cut a couple of times before capturing them, this might push them from a vegetable into a full-blown corpse. Providing your prisoners are healed and rested, this is fairly safe to keep on one of them constantly. If nothing else, it will make it easier to down them when they try and break out. This ability also plays strongly into creating your own puppets down the line, so if you want to get puppets ASAP, you will want to pick this up first. Subjugation. As well as being able to mess around with puppets, the Puppeteer can also make standard recruitment a lot easier for the colony too. A single cast of Subjugation will ensure that any standard pawn will be recruited in 7 days, regardless of resistance or traits that make global loss certainty a pain in the arse to deal with. You can simply throw this on them, make sure they're fed, and just let it do its magic. If you happen to find an unwaveringly loyal pawn, this will still work, it'll just take 2 casts. The first will strip the unwavering tag, and the second convinces them to join you. If you're using ideology, this converts them too. It's never been easier to get a prisoner over to your side. Degrade. A fairly decent ranged mental break on demand. Exceptionally useful to ensure that a pawn that you might want from a raid isn't killed when downed and will also stick around on your tile for much longer than usual. Just make sure that you've got a pawn with a high animal skill if you want to try and actually tame these wild pawns. Otherwise you'll need to flip a coin on the arrest chance and likely end up murdering them anyway. As you can see from my footage, this cast can miss and also be interrupted, so throwing this out in the thick of a firefight might be more difficult than you'd like, and potentially disastrous if it clocks one of your own pawns in the back of the head. Puppet. Unusual to see with most Psycasting, this ability is part of a chain. For Puppet to be castable, the target must already be afflicted with brain leech. It doesn't matter how severe it is, only that they have that condition. This is how a Puppeteer takes over pawns, and the system comes with a host of unique aspects. Firstly, puppets are treated as colonists, so you don't need to recruit prisoners that you want to use as a puppet. You can simply take them over and call it done. Secondly, puppets have a 30% penalty to consciousness, all of the time, as well as a penalty to any experience that they earn, not necessarily their learning rate. The upside to this is that puppets are almost a complete copy of the caster, only differing in their xenotype and any pre-existing medical conditions. They'll share the same passions, backgrounds, traits and skills, with any experience your puppets learn also increasing the puppeteer's skills, hence the lowered experience gain. Not only that, puppets are stripped of all but the most basic needs. They want food and sleep. That's it. Their mental condition is locked to the puppeteer, however, so if their master has a break, expect any pawns that they control to experience the same negative too. This is why you want the best traits and passions on your puppeteer, as they're going to be shared to all of their puppets, so a weak puppeteer will have weak and mentally stunted puppets. If you want to go one step further with your puppets and turn them into more of a human ghoul that's capable of work, don't forget that circadian half-cyclers exist. That will leave your puppet only needing food. They're going to work at a snail's pace, sure, but they're practically never going to stop working. This doesn't impact the quality of construction, crafting, or art projects, only the time needed to finish them.
Marge, it's 3 a.m. Shouldn't you be baking?
In a little while.
It's going to be most detrimental to social tasks, medical work, and combat. Significantly worse to combat. So if you're going this route, consider giving puppets weapons where volume of projectiles beats out accuracy. So miniguns, flamethrowers, or even better, give them grenades and launchers. Splash damage usually hits something. Summon Puppet. Despite the wording on this cast, you'll need line of sight to your puppet to be able to target them, although this feels like a bug, so if after putting this video out the ability changes, it was indeed a bug. Useful for dragging a puppet into a fight very quickly or getting them out of harm's way. Unfortunately, this can't be used like Farskip to ferry puppets across the overworld to help with the world quest, unless of course it's bugged, in which case it totally can. Working around assumptions makes this kinda tricky. Mind Split. This ability is key to making the puppeteer really stand out. Working like a bandwidth improvement for a mechanator, casting this will increase how many puppets your pawn is able to control, costing a significant chunk of psi focus and hitting the caster with a 4-hour coma, and sometimes knocking out their puppets too, although weirdly not always. You'll be wanting to cast this in preparation for getting a new puppet, but don't go too crazy spamming it when things are quiet. The last thing you want is your puppeteer out cold when a raid hits. Even if they do wake up in time, they'll be practically drained of all of their psi focus. Puppet Swarm. This feels like it works how Summon Puppet is supposed to, being able to bring all of your puppets to the location at the snap of your fingers. Different layers, other maps, it doesn't matter. If you cast this, you'll bring in the party, which makes me think more and more that something is up with Summon Puppet and it's supposed to work without the line of sight limitation. If that gets fixed in a patch after this video was uploaded, thanks for watching my content, and thank you for noticing. Ascension. This is an offensive cast to end all offensive casts. If you know about a utility item called the Architect Eraser, it's exactly the same as that. This explosion of psychic energy doesn't simply deal damage, it straight up deletes whatever is in the surrounding tiles. No bodies, no loot, nothing. Just poof and gone. Obviously you're paying for it with a puppet's life, but on the other hand, that puppet becomes Psycasting experience upon their ascension, which scales with the skill experience on the pawn. So as you might imagine, if you've been running a puppet army for a little while, with them all feeding experience to one another, it won't be long before you hit max Psycasting level by simply sacrificing a couple of them for the greater good.
How can this be for the greater good? Shut it!
Mind jump. This is what makes the Puppeteer really cool as a concept, especially when combined with biotech. If the host's body becomes a bit useless, be it too old, too battered, or simply boring, you can transfer the primary consciousness into a different puppet's body, replacing the original Puppeteer with a puppet. So if you capture a pawn that has nice implants or a stronger, sturdier xenotype, now they can be the Puppeteer instead. After all, everyone shares the same skills and traits, so there's zero downsides besides the short coma for doing this. The better the body, the more likely the swarm is to survive. It also allows you to put potentially dangerous implants into a puppet body, then transfer into it once you've seen that the operation went successfully, avoiding killing your Puppeteer by botching a brain operation or a heart transplant. And there we have it. Not totally overwhelming, but certainly one of the more involved Psycasting trees, especially as the majority of casts we've used and covered up until now have just been throw damage in some form or give a buff. This is a whole new layer of mechanics to mess around with. The path by itself opens up the potential for a run, where you're expected to use a single Puppeteer and slowly amass an army of puppets. You might just need to do a little bit of editing with a custom scenario to make sure that you've got the ability to make puppets from the start. Otherwise it could be a little painful to get the ball rolling. Maybe add the 2 starting items of a Brain Leech and Puppet Psy Trainer, and for the love of God don't pick a psychically deaf pawn. Thanks for watching folks. If you have any mods you'd like to see a full breakdown for, or suggestions of mods you'd like to see covered, feel free to leave them in the comments, I might get around to them. I'll be back again soon with another Rimworld mod rundown. Wherever you are in the world, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon or evening. Take care.